Welcome to DGP Week 6. Please spell out the 6 and don't forget to put your name and your core in your heading. Again, we did this the week of October the 3rd, but I'm more interested in your comma placement and your spelling, so make sure your date is correct. Here we have 4 corrections for this DGP. This comes from Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and the corrections, always start with a capital letter at the beginning. My girls, direct address, that'll come in handy later. Will you give them your breakfast as a Christmas present? And we're going to put a question mark here. Let's see, what is, oh, I see my last correction. This, Christmas, is a specific holiday. In this case, it is going to be a proper adjective. So those are my 4 corrections. As we move on to our next slide, again, date. I'm seeing a lot of people not capitalizing Tuesday. Make sure that doesn't happen to you. Don't forget your commas. Those are things. And here we go with our parts of speech. So the first thing I like to look for are prepositional phrases. They just stick out at me. As a Christmas present is a prepositional phrase, and prepositional phrases begin with prepositions. So I know that we have one preposition, and I've already found it. I also look for articles. If you struggle with DGP, look for these articles because it will get you started. I already told you yesterday that we have an adjective, and it is a proper adjective. That's why that A is capitalized, and it is with Christmas as a proper adjective. So I'm going to mark that off. Next thing I'm looking for would be the nouns. In this case, they are all concrete nouns. It is a Christmas present. You could actually give it to somebody. It is a girl. That is a noun. And then breakfast is a noun. So there we have our 3 nouns. Possessive pronouns also pop out at me because possessive means they show ownership. So I'm going to switch pens here. My girls, this is a possessive pronoun. It is also your breakfast, and here I have 2, so I know that we have found both of them. So there are my possessive pronouns. I am going to now go with my one action verb. We have one of those, and it pops out at me here with give. So here's our action verb. And we have a verb phrase because we also have a helping verb. And so it is will give is the helping verb here. So now we have a couple things left. Let me mark this off. We have a nominative pronoun. We have an objective pronoun. So you have the word you, the pronoun you, and you have the pronoun them. In this case, we are looking at our nominative pronouns are subjects. So who will give, and that would be you. This is a nominative pronoun, and so that will be our subject in the next slide. And then them is left, and it is objective pronoun. And there we have Tuesdays with our parts of speech. Moving on to the next slide, we did this on Wednesday, October the 5th. Again, people have not learned how to spell Wednesday. Don't let that be you. Watch your commas. And here we have parts of the sentence. I already told you yesterday, if you pay attention, we have a prepositional phrase, see? So all you have to do is transfer that information here. We only have one of them, so it is an adverbial prepositional phrase. And this adverbial prepositional phrase tells us more about what you are going to give. It's going to be the breakfast as a Christmas present. The object of the preposition is the last word here. It is a noun. And so there we have our object of the preposition. And the last slide, I told you we had a nominative pronoun in the pronoun you. Nominative pronouns mean it's going to be the subject. So there's our subject. Our verb, you give. That is a verb. It is transitive. That simply means that transitive right here tells you you're going to have a direct object. To find the direct object, you need to find the action of the verb. You give what? You give breakfast. This is your direct object. So make sure you're asking and seeing who is receiving the action of the verb. And you give what? You're giving, oops, did I make that arrow too long? Sorry. You give breakfast. To whom is your indirect object. And that's how it always works. It's kind of that double smile here with your, I don't know, with my writing. You give what? You give breakfast, but you come back for the indirect object. So there's all of that. And the last thing we have is a direct address. I use this all the time with students. If I say, Andrew, go shut the door, I'm directly addressing Andrew, and with the direct address here, my girls. So that's your direct address. And it's the my girls. Will you give your breakfast as a Christmas present? And those are our parts of speech. So the next slide, we'll pop into our diagram. There it is. Again, before we get started, there's your date. Make sure that's there. And here, let's fill in our diagram. So sometimes it helps if you see this. So for example, you might see, oh, my girls, because we have two different parts, and we'll give you your breakfast. Will you give your breakfast as a Christmas present? And it goes here. So I'm going to move this down so we can see the whole diagram. And up here at the top is the direct address. The biggest problem I see is people want to put my girls when it's girls. Which girls? My girls. Because this pronoun, that possessive pronoun, is modifying the girls. Which girls? My girls. You already know the subject. That goes right here in this spot, and that is the word you. And then here is your verb. And this time we have a verb phrase, and it's will give. Now listen, and you'll see, you will give what? This is receiving the action of the verb, and this is your breakfast. And you can see, again, here's a word that is modifying breakfast. What kind of breakfast? Oh, it is your breakfast. A lot of times I find students who do the prepositional phrase first because they have kind of seen that little code, that little cheat we call it. And so here is your preposition, as a present, and it is a present and a Christmas present. So there's your prepositional phrase. With your indirect object, that's going to go here. Your indirect object is them. And the reason it looks like this, if you'll notice, this kind of looks like this without that little tail. It's because indirect objects can be turned into prepositional phrases. And so you could have said in your sentence, my girls, will you give your breakfast? I could take them and say to them, making this a prepositional phrase, and then I could have put to them as your prepositional phrase, but this, if you know how to read these, someone reading that would be like, oh, that is not a prepositional phrase. They are using that as an indirect object, and you indicate that with your parenthesis with an X. That means it's not there, but there's almost like a placeholder, kind of like the understood you. This is week 6 DGP. I hope it was helpful. Make sure and get that turned in. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.